All right, let's talk about what we have seen horrifically happen in Florida this past couple of days with the school shooting in Parkland. Has certainly given new rise to gun violence, which we have seen here in the 2nd Congressional District, which we've seen in Las Vegas, we've seen in other parts of Florida, all over the country, really. Some have said that this feels different in terms of maybe some sort of tipping point for pushing forward on some legislation that might make a difference. Do you feel like something is different as a result of this last shooting?
Well, I think it was horrific. You know, I've seen this year the trauma personally from madmen with guns when I looked into the faces of my colleagues when they were attempted to be killed by a person in Old Town Alexandria at a 6:30 a.m. baseball game. And I've seen the horror from that and the blood from it. And then, you know, our son this week is traumatized by what he saw. He's an 18-year-old high school senior. So these are tough things, and my attitude about it is we've been let down by our background check system this year. We saw the Las Vegas shooter was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force. He should have been blocked from buying guns and ammunition and be in the background system. We saw this instance where this young man in Florida had been turned into an FBI tip line, and yet the FBI didn't pursue it. And I just think all of us as parents worried about our kids, we protect our government buildings, we protect our airports. Why can we not come together and find a way to adequately protect our kids at school? This should be fundamental. And so this idea of getting our background check system working better, finding a way to have a tip line, a whistleblower line that protects teachers and kids and students to make sure if they see something and say something that it can be followed up on would be very important.
So what do you think's the breakdown there? If it's not working, the law is on the books to prevent something like this from happening. Does it require more money? Does it require a stricter or a longer period of background check? Does it need a bigger commitment of resources? I mean, you're the elected official in Congress, and the Republicans control Congress, and I think that the nation is looking to you and to the Republican majority for leadership on this issue, and they're not seeing a plan.
Well, after the Vegas shooting, we passed a law in the House and sent it to the Senate that increased federal penalties on any government agency that did not report speedily and accurately into the background check system, with particular emphasis on our military, for example. So I think increased penalties for people who should report to the background check system and don't in a timely way, local law enforcement or federal officials. It's important because if you are a felon, if you have a domestic violence case, if you've been dishonorably discharged, if you're illegally possessing a firearm based on age or one of these crimes, you ought to be in the background check system.
There was consensus for restricting bump stocks or even making them illegal after Las Vegas, and nothing ever moved on that. I think that adds to the frustration.
Yeah, 70 of us. I was one of the 70 members of Congress that wrote the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Administration to reconsider their regulation about the bump stock issue. I thought that was something that should be re-looked at. The Obama administration had approved it and said it did not comply, and we've asked for it to be reassessed. And that is, to my understanding, is still being looked at by ATF.
You've been in the streets of Little Rock marching against violence in particularly communities that have had a lot of havoc wreaked on them by that. When you get back to Washington, D.C., what are you going to do? Are you going to organize a group of people? Are you going of elected officials? Are you going to put together some sort of comprehensive legislative approach to addressing some of the shortcomings that you see? Or do you feel like it's not in your jurisdiction? Do you feel like it's something that there's just going to be a lot of talk on, and 6 months later when we have another tragedy like this, we're going to look back and nothing really is going to change?
Well, I think in the federal system, this area of the background check system and is something that we can focus on immediately. It's an area there's interest on in Congress. There's bipartisan support for that. And I think states need to look at their own laws as well. And I would say what I've learned here in Little Rock is that we have to have opportunities for these young men, principally young men between 18 and 25, and get them in school and with a job and with an education and with hope for the future, and not let them turn to the despair they see on the streets of Arkansas, where they use a firearm to commit a drug offense. And it's going to take both our education system, our family system, the sense of morality and civility in our society to make that better. And we need to enforce our laws to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and out of the hands of the mentally ill. We had a very good mental health bill that we passed in Congress, last Congress, that specifically talks about things like the HIPAA rules around mental health. We have 60% of drug deaths, gun deaths every year are from suicide, and we have more people in jail with mental health problems than we have in care facilities. And that is, I think, important. The rules about are you a danger to yourself or others, I don't think are being shared like they can be under HIPAA. And I think we ought to relook at HIPAA's provisions and who interprets those. We offer that in this mental health bill to encourage states to do that and practitioners, because if someone is in mental health treatment, they are also banned on that background check list. Are they being turned in?
These solutions that you're proposing, if the legislation doesn't exist already, will you be the sponsor of those bills?
I will certainly work with my colleagues to try to find a way to do that, particularly the ones in the committees of jurisdiction. And this is something we are talking about, but in the spending bill that we passed last week, there's mental health money in there that was approved on a 2-year basis by both houses of Congress, signed into law. I'd like to see some of that dedicated to this kind of purpose.
All right, Congressman Frenchill, I'm not sure we'll have the answers anytime soon, but I think that there is definitely desire from everyone involved to see an attempt to make something happen.
Right,
So,
I agree. Thanks, Roby.
thank you for being here. All right, that's all for today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.